Stone Sage here today. How you doing? I'm going to talk a little bit more about my early work experiences. My first two jobs were at country clubs. First one was in Waynesboro, Pennsylvania, at the Waynesboro Country Club, and I worked 66, 67, and then 67, 68 different summers. And the first summer I worked there, that's where I was waiting to caddy, and they looked out and they said, "Does anybody want a job?" And I said, "Well, how much doing what?" And they said, "I think it was $1, $1.25 an hour, and 8 hours a day, and on weekends." And I'm thinking, well, he says, "I had a caddy." I said, "Okay, I'll do it." And so I started my first job, and it was a opening golf breakfast, and it was a big thing at country clubs. That first weekend golf, where everything's going on. Now they're still building the new country club here. So this is out of a house. They had all this stuff, and they had set up some kind of commercial kitchen, which wasn't a whole lot, but it was enough at the time. And they had like rotten potatoes and scrambled eggs, basic breakfast stuff. And all the members would come in and eat at a buffet, and then they'd go out and play their rounds, and we'd clean up, and they'd come in for some kind of lunch if they wanted, and we'd have sandwiches prepared. And then later on that night, they'd come back for dinner. And very chaotic. So after we get through that first weekend, they set up a cooler on the between the ninth and the 10th hole. And what I do is I'd go in on Saturday mornings at about 7 o'clock, and I'd get this golf cart and I'd load it up with ice and beer, soda, chips, basic stuff, and I'd go out and I'd set it up, and I'd go and fill it up with the beer and soda and everything as the guys came around. If they didn't want to go up to the club, they could just stop here and stop me, and I'd usually give them beers and sodas. They had sandwiches, and they'd just continue on. And I did that whole summer, and I think I made $600 back in was it '67 or whatever, and that is about almost $6,000 now. And during the summer, I also cut lawns. I had 2 yards I cut besides my parents' house, and I got paid like $20 each. They were pretty good sized yards. I didn't have weed eaters, and I just had I had a riding mower since they were over acre yards each, and I had my little power mower, so I'd do that and made that money. So I made a lot of money when I was 14 years old. So the next summer after school, I started June 1st, and I worked straight through till August. And at this time, they had the new country club made. It was finished, and so I was working up there in the kitchen and helping the chef. They were teaching me, and I was learning how to do things in the kitchen, prepare and set up and all that. And it was a really great chef. He's a French chef, short guy. He was funny, but he was really good, and he taught me a lot of basics. He said it's all in the stock, how you start your dish out. So he told me how to make turkey soup, and a lot of other things. We'd prepare stuff for weddings, little rolled lunch meats or toothpicks on olives. I did all that stuff. Then again, I'd wash the dishes, and so I was really enjoying that. And then on Mondays, I'd come in on to do the country club was closed on Mondays, and they had two wood floors where they would serve their dinner, upstairs dining room and the downstairs grill room. And on Mondays, this guy showed me how the old school how to paste wax wood floors. And you'd have to get this big roll of steel wool, and you'd have to roll it out to make a pad, and you'd have to put that on this dry pad on a floor buffer, and then you'd put your wax on it, and if you didn't make this thing just right, it would dance. I mean, the buffer would go up and down and up and down, so you had to make it just right. So it took me one or two to get get it right, which is normal, I guess, for learning something that was an art. So once they taught me how to do that, they let me go. Every Monday I'd come in about 7 o'clock, and I'd move all the chairs to one side of the dining room, and I'd wax it. You'd have to put the wax down, then you'd pick it up, and then polish it. So it's a three-step process. So then I'd go over and do the other side, move all the chairs and tables back. Then I'd go down and do the grow room floors. Wasn't a whole lot of chairs and tables down there, but there was still a good bit of wood floor. And I do all that. And then I also had the keys, since I did the wood floors and I was kind of like a house man. I had keys to everything. And when Frank would leave, Frank wasn't there. He was my boss, working around the country club, not in the kitchen. I'd have his keys. And there was two sets of full keys. The manager, which Mr. Horning, or the assistant manager when he wasn't there, or Frank, or myself. And that got you into the liquor lockers. Well, I guess the bartenders had issues with getting liquor out of the liquor locker. So they weren't allowed to have keys. So they had to come find me to get into the liquor locker. And they tell me, hey, we need liquor. And I said, all right, let's go. And I could tell these guys didn't like asking a kid, and there's the guys in their mid-40s, I guess 40s, 50s, whatever, that's coming to get the keys from a kid and let them in. So I think they're kind of embarrassed because they weren't trustworthy enough. But yeah, I really enjoyed working at that country club. And so I worked the whole summer, and I made, how much did I make? I made like a little over $1,100. And in today's money, that's over $10,000. I made a lot of money in those 3 months in today's money. Now, again, I didn't have I did buy a motorcycle. I did buy a motorcycle. In my first job, I bought a pool table. I was walking down the street with a friend, and I'd played pool before, and I liked it. And there was this pool table for sale, and I said, hey, I got enough cash on me. So I bought it, and called my mom and said, hey, I just bought a pool table. And she goes, what? I said, yeah. So she came with the station wagon, which everybody had back then, and we brought it home, and I had a pool table. Then the second job, after a couple of weeks of working, my mom got tired of taking me to work, and she said, well, we need to do something about this. So she had a friend that she went to high school with that owned a motorcycle shop. So he went down and bought my first motorcycle, paid cash for it, and I still had tons of money. I had checks. When we moved from Virginia to Pennsylvania, I had over $600 worth of uncashed checks. So I just never had, just didn't need it. I had it. So, all right, that's about my first couple jobs. It was really interesting. Enjoyed working in the kitchens and doing everything else I did. All righty, peace out. Have a good day.